Right now, there is a task you are avoiding. You know what it is. You've known for days. And every time you get close to starting, something invisible pulls you the other way, toward your phone, toward the fridge, toward anything that isn't the thing. You call that laziness. The science says you're describing it wrong, and the wrong description is keeping you stuck. What you feel as laziness is not a flaw in your character. It's the output of a calculation your brain runs automatically, every time, before you've consciously decided anything. Learn how that calculation works, and you stop blaming yourself for losing a fight you didn't know you were in. Start with the story you've probably been told your whole life. Lazy people lack willpower. Willpower works like a muscle. Some people are born with a stronger one, and if yours is weak, that's on you. It's a tidy explanation. It's also one that modern psychology has largely abandoned, and the way it fell apart is worth your attention. The muscle idea traces back to the psychologist Roy Baumeister and colleagues in the late 1990s. Self-control, they proposed, runs on a limited reserve that drains with use, which is why you crumble by the end of a long day. A 2010 meta-analysis seemed to back it up. Then, in 2016, researchers put the theory through the toughest test there is. 23 separate laboratories, more than 2,000 participants. One shared protocol locked in advance so nobody could massage the numbers afterward. The result came back close to zero. The effect that an entire shelf of productivity books rested on barely showed up. And before they ran it, 22 of those 23 labs had predicted they would find it. They wanted it to be true. The data didn't cooperate. So set the willpower tank aside. The real answer runs along two tracks, one in your biology and one in your emotions, and you're standing on both at once. The biological track is a number your brain is always computing. Researchers call it effort-based decision-making. Before you act, your brain weighs what you'll get against what it'll cost you to get it, and the appeal of any action falls as the effort rises, even when the reward never changes. Your brain isn't lazy. It's frugal. It treats effort as a price, and it would prefer not to pay. What sets the price is dopamine. Forget the pop culture version where dopamine is the pleasure chemical, the little reward buzz. In motivation, dopamine does something different. It's the chemical of willingness, the thing that says go. Michael Treadway and his team at Vanderbilt showed this in 2012. They scanned 25 healthy volunteers with PET imaging, while each person chose, over and over, between an easy task for a small reward and a hard one for a bigger reward. The volunteers with stronger dopamine function in two regions, the left striatum and the ventromedial prefrontal cortex, were reliably more willing to do the hard thing for the larger payoff. Identical choices, identical rewards. The difference lived in the brain. A wider line of research led by John Salamoni drives it home. Across years of animal and human work, the finding holds in both directions. Turn dopamine down, and you get what scientists flatly call a low-effort bias. The capacity to act stays intact. The willingness to pick the steeper path is what drains away. Turn dopamine up, with drugs that block its reuptake, and the bias swings the other way, toward choosing the harder, higher reward option. The same lever moves effort both ways, which tells you something. Effort isn't a fixed trait you either have or lack. It's a setting. So when a task makes you feel that physical resistance, that strange heaviness, some of that is a dopamine system quietly casting a vote against the climb. That's the first crack in the laziness story you've been telling yourself. If a chemical setting can raise or lower your willingness to work without touching your values, your intelligence, or your good intentions, then willingness to work was never a clean readout of your character. It's a reading on a dial, and the dial runs on biology. That's track 1. It explains the pull, but not all of it. And track 2 is where most people have the story backwards. You almost certainly file procrastination under time management. You're disorganized. You need a better system. The right app will save you. The people who study this for a living disagree. and the evidence sides with them. Procrastination, they argue, isn't about time at all. It's about emotion. In 2013, Fushia Sirois and Timothy Pickle made the case plainly. When you dodge a task, you're not dodging the work. You're dodging the feeling the work stirs up: boredom, anxiety, self-doubt, the quiet fear that you'll give it everything and it still won't be good enough. Walking away kills that feeling instantly. That hit of relief is the hook. Your brain registers that avoidance made the discomfort stop, marks it as a success, and reaches for the same move next time, a little faster. Feichel says it without hedging. Procrastination is an emotion regulation problem, not a time management problem. You're not lazy. You're medicating a bad feeling, and the cost gets quietly transferred to the version of you who has to wake up tomorrow and face the same untouched task, now larger. If it feels like you're the only one, the numbers say otherwise. A landmark 2007 meta-analysis by Piers Steele, assembled from 691 separate correlations, found that chronic procrastination grips somewhere between 15 and 20% of adults. Not students the night before an exam. Working adults in the ordinary run of their lives. And more than 95% of procrastinators say they want to stop. That's the fingerprint of something that isn't a simple choice. Almost no one wants to live this way, and they do it anyway. Steele's work also nailed down what truly drives the behavior, and your inner critic has been lying to you about it. The strongest, steadiest predictors were how unpleasant the task feels, how distant the deadline sits, how much you doubt you can pull it off, and how impulsive you are in the moment. Look at what's missing from that list: weak character, moral failure. Laziness is a kind of rot in the soul. The real drivers are about the task and your relationship to it, not a verdict on who you are. There's a clean reason the faraway deadline lets you off the hook so easily. Your brain steeply discounts rewards that sit far in the future. The payoff for finishing next week feels thin and abstract right now, while the relief of avoidance is available this very second. So the internal math is loaded before you even start. Distant dim reward on one side, instant bright reward on the other. You grab the bright one. Every human brain is wired to. This is also why procrastination feels so irrational from the inside, and why it is. The person who pays for today's avoidance is never today's you. It's tomorrow's you, or next week's, a person who feels almost like a stranger when the deadline is far off. Sirois and Feichel built their whole account around this gap. You're not managing time badly. You're treating your future self as someone else's problem, because the discomfort is yours right now and the cost is theirs later. The bill always arrives. It just never arrives addressed to the version of you who ran it up. Now you can see the whole shape of it. Laziness, as you live it, is two forces in one disguise: a biological effort-reward equation tuned by dopamine, and an emotional escape loop that pays you in immediate relief. Which leaves the only question worth asking: if willpower was never the lever, what is? The research is specific, and it points away from everything you've already tried and failed. Trying harder doesn't work, because effort is the exact cost your brain is dodging. A better calendar doesn't work, because time was never the real problem. What works is changing the calculation itself. The most tested tool for this has an unglamorous name: the implementation intention. It's nearly too simple to trust. Instead of carrying a vague goal like "I'll work on the report," you write an if-then plan that fixes the when, the where, and the how. If it's 9 in the morning and I'm sitting at my desk, then I open the file and write one sentence. That's the whole technique. In 2006, Peter Gallwitzer and Pascal Sheeran pooled 94 tests of it across more than 8,000 people. And the effect on follow-through was large, a Cohen's d of 0.65, which in this field is a heavyweight result. It works for the reason everything here predicts. By deciding the moment of action ahead of time, you delete the in-the-moment choice, the precise spot where your brain reaches for the couch. The second move comes straight out of Steele's data. Task aversiveness is one of the heaviest predictors of avoidance, so you attack it directly. You shrink the task until the first step is too small to trip the dread, not write the report. Open the document and type one bad sentence on purpose. You're not fooling yourself. You're lowering the emotional cost your brain keeps flinching from, so there's less feeling left to run from. The third move sounds gentle and isn't. Stop savaging yourself over this. The avoidance loop runs on the bad feeling around the task, and brutal self-criticism just shovels more bad feeling onto the heap, handing your brain even more to escape. Cutting yourself some patience isn't a comfort prize. It cuts off the loop's fuel supply. One honest note, because it counts. A low energy that won't lift and a motivation that won't return can sometimes signal something deeper, depression among them. And that's not something a video can diagnose or repair. If this sits heavy and never moves, talking to a qualified professional isn't giving up. It's the same principle as every other move here, going after the real cause instead of the imaginary one. So return to where you started. There's a task you're avoiding, and you've known for days, and something keeps pulling you away from it. You called that laziness. But now you know what that pull actually is. Not weakness, not a missing muscle. A brain running an old, relentless calculation, weighing effort against reward and grabbing for relief, doing precisely the job it was built to do. You were never fighting your own character. You were misreading your own wiring. And wiring, unlike character, is something you can rewire the moment you stop arguing with it and start changing what you feed it.